Hello learners, welcome to NR Studio. This is live Vidya program for Science and Technology, secondary course of NIOS. I am Nilam Gupta, course coordinator of Environmental Science. Welcome you all this program. Learners, in our previous program we have discussed about the role of nervous system and hormonal system in control and coordination of various activities in our body. Also talk about major component of the nervous system and their functions, their role in informed decision making as well as role of nerve cells too in the transmission of the nerve impulse. We have also discussed location and function of the spinal cord in evoking our reflex action and the role of some endocrine glands in regulating our growth and behavior. Lastly, we will discuss about the role and relevance of reflex, voluntary and involuntary action as well as hormones in efficient functioning of the human body. So till now you have an idea about how classification, origin of life, classification, new organism gain life, grow and become ready to give rise to another generation of similar individuals. So you will also learn about the importance of reproduction, health and hygiene so as to prevent the spread of sexually transmitted diseases. This information will enable you to correct choices at the appropriate time. So as you know, or maybe we can say you are well aware that a family continues generation after generation and also that organisms produce their own kind. And this process of reproducing one's own kind ensures the continuance of the variety of organisms that inhabit the earth, that is reproduction. So topic is reproduction. So reproduction is one of the most important characteristic feature of every living being and has its own role to play in the body just like the other biological processes like respiration, circulation, nutrition, nerve excretion and many other functions. So we will discuss about reproduction during this live session, and this is lesson number 24, life procedure 3rd of module 5, the living kingdom. So what are we going to discuss is objective reproduction and different type of mode of reproduction, different type of asexual and sexual reproductions, sex organs and process of reproduction in flowering plant, and we will also talk about some facts about reproduction in animal, especially emphasize on human reproduction, and what are the changes found during puberty, and emphasize the importance of reproductive health and hygiene. And we will also discuss about major sex organs or reproductive organs in humans, their location and their function, and also talk about reproductive event leading to pregnancy and parturition, and express concern regarding negative consequences of adolescence pregnancy, awareness about the prevention and transmission of STDs disease and RTI, which is caused by microbes. And also we will give awareness about how increasing human population and suggest methods for preventive population control. And lastly, we will talk about mode of transmission and prevention of HIV virus or AIDS, and utilize this information and make safe, informed choices. So everyone has an experience that your parents share your experience about your birth. They said what a joyful moment it when you were born. Your parents, elders, relatives and family friends might have told you how happy they were to see you take your first step. And then as an infant, they also discuss how you got frightened when a dog barked. You can take your parents about your infancy and childhood, and you can also discuss what type of you. So they would certainly remember many anecdotes of the past while you were as a teenager are now busy understanding changes within yourself as you grow into an adult. So these changes as you progress from infancy to childhood and then to adolescence. So see the figure, they are starting from infancy to adolescence, then adult, then old person. So as you can do this activity, or you can take this activity, so you can create an album, make an album from your photographs from infancy to till date. If you have no photographs, collect pictures of infants and growing children to get an idea of how changes takes place in our body as once you grow up. So we will discuss this lesson, or this. So you shall realize, begin to realize that a naturally occurring feature of all organisms is to grow up. So this is applicable for all living beings, either microbes, plant, animals. They all need to grow up to an extent when they are able to perpetuate their own species. The species lives it from one generation to the next. And the biological process involved in the perpetuation of a species is known as reproduction. So reproduction may be defined as a biological process by which organisms give rise to their own kind, and it may be two types, either asexual reproduction or sexual reproduction. When we talk about asexual reproduction, examples may be bacteria or protozoan. So bacterial and protozoan offspring may be reproduced by single individuals, and that is why it is known as asexual reproduction. Examples included certain animals like amoeba and hydra, and many plants reproduce asexually. Sexual reproduction, they are when two individuals involved in the reproduction, so it is termed as sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, male gametes fuses with female gametes to mark the beginning of a new individual, and examples are plants and animals, including humans too. So asexual reproduction, as we already talk, where single organisms takes place in many ways. In lower organisms like bacteria and protozoan and some algae and plant, asexual reproduction is by the vegetative mode or vegetative propagation. Animals like sponges and hydra reproduces both sexually and asexually. So now we are talking about different types of asexual reproduction which is found in lower organisms, and it may be binary fission, budding and spore formation. We will talk little bit about all three forms of asexual reproduction. First we will talk about binary fission. A cell may divide to give rise to two individuals and lose its own identity, as in binary fission that takes place in amoeba and bacteria, as you are seeing in figure. First, one individual, we are dividing nucleus into two, then formation, then last figure D explain two daughter organisms reproduce. Second is budding. In budding, a bud forms from the body of the mother cell and remain attached to it. The parental nucleus elongated and then divides into two. One is which move into the bud. The example of budding is, common example is yeast. In animals like sponges and hydra, which are multicellular, when bud arises from some part of the body, enlarges and then detaches from the parent body after all its body parts have been formed. Third is spore formation. The cytoplasm and nucleus of algae like Chlamydomonas divide successively to form 4 to 8 spores, and spores are formed for reproduction in fungus, moss and fern too. Spores are single celled, which upon releases from the parent plants develop into new individuals. Now we talk about asexual reproduction in plants. In the form of asexual reproduction in plants is vegetative propagation. We see in nature new plants may arise from root, stem or leaves, that is from the vegetative part of the plant. This form of plant asexual reproduction in plant is termed as vegetative propagation. It can be natural or artificial. So there are mode of reproduction. Natural methods may be root, stem and leaves. Specialized plant part may be adventitious roots, runner, sucker, bulb, tuber, rhizome and adventitious root. And examples we will take little bit later. An artificial method includes cutting, layering and grafting. So new plants may be formed from roots or stem or leaves, or when the stem grows to a distance and then enters soil and strikes roots to form a new plant. So we have already discussed there are several methods of vegetative natural methods, which includes adventitious root, runner, sucker, bulb, tuber, rhizome and adventitious root. We will talk about little bit about all these type of vegetative propagation. So when plant allow to reproduce without seed by forming new shoots and roots from cutting or unusual locations. Example may be mint, biophyllum, sweet potato and dahlia. Runner, a slender horizontal stem that grows above the ground. Function may be produces new shoots at nodes which when it touches the soil. Example is strawberry and grass. You see grass from one node to another node. So that grass is the mode of reproduction in grass is runner. Then sucker, a shoot arises from the vegetative underground part of the stem or root, and function may be grows upward forming a new plant near the parents. Example is banana or chrysanthemum. Bulb, example is onion, garlic and tulip. A short underground stem surrounded by fleshly modified leaf that is stored food. Function and each can grow into a new plants. Tuber, example is potato or yam. Potato, a tuber is a swollen underground stem that stores nutrients, and function contain eye or bud. You see potato has different potato has small eye like structure in their skin. So these eyes that sprout into new shoots. When we put into the soil, then they grow from each plant from one eye. Rhizome, a horizontal underground stem that grows near the soil surface and produces roots and shoots at nodes. That is a function, and example is ginger, turmeric and bamboo. Vegetative propagation may be done by adventitious buds. That buds that arise from non-typical places like root, leaves or internodes, and they can develop into new shoots in plants. Example is biophyllum or sweet potato. So humans have taken hints from natural methods of vegetative propagation to grow many plants through artificial propagation. And artificial methods include cutting, layering, grafting and rooting. So nowadays, various methods may be applied by farmers or nursery owners to multiply desired plant by using artificial propagation. So first we will talk about layering. A piece of branch is cut and embedded in the soil, roots from the form and new plant result. A branch of the plant is laid to the ground and a portion is embedded in the soil, this part strikes roots and gives rise to a new plant. Guti or air layering is also a vegetative propagation technique where roots are induced on a stem while it is still attached to the parent plant, and once root develops, the stem is cut and transplanted. And it is widely used for perennial horticulture species like guava, lychee, pomegranate and cinnamon, because it ensures high success rate and produces true to type plant. Grafting is a process by which plant of other plants are attached with the stem of the plant rooted in the ground, and it issues after graft become integrated with the rooted plant and develop a single plant over the time. So, lower part of the stem, when we see the figure, so lower plant of the part of the stem or scion is cut into a wedge. So, if we see figure B, so the shoot of the plant used as a stalk is cut off, the stem is slit vertically and the scion is inserted into the stalk is cut off. The stem is slit vertically and the scion is inserted into the stalk and tied with the tape to the graft. Union occurs within the short time. So, other method of asexual reproduction is laboratory method. So, researchers have raised offspring from single parent through tissue culture. We have very famous example is Dolly. Dolly was a sheep, an exact copy of her mother raised through cloning. And now we talk about micropropagation. Researchers have standardized that methods of tissue culture. Every living cell or every part of a plant has been found to be totipotent. Totipotent are cells that can develop into any type of cell in an organism, including both the body cells and the supporting structure like placenta. That is, it has the potential to give rise to more plantlets or plants. So, how can we explain why? So, we understand that all the cells of an individual arises from a single cell, zygote and hence all cells have the same genes. Genes controls growth, development and all the life processes. So, from a piece of plant, say root of carrot or leaf, cells can now be cultured in adequate nutrient medium to form an undifferentiated mass of cells called callus, which can then give rise to a new plantlets. And raising of new plants through tissue culture is termed as micropropagation. So, leaf taken from a plant is a figure 1. Then cell form from undifferentiated mass is a callus and hormones and nutrient medium added to cells, and next D part is new plants grows from callus. So, now we have already given example is Dolly, that is cloning. So, how does cloning work? So, clone is the genetic copy of the parent, and sheep Dolly when born was an exact copy of her mother. Her mother's other cell nucleus was transformed into the egg of a surrogate mother. What is surrogate mother? A female animal in whose womb an embryo from another female of the same kind is developing after removing the nucleus. So, Dolly's mother provided her genes, while the surrogate mother provided the womb for Dolly to develop from an embryo to a full-fledged individual. So, we have already given an idea about how sexual reproduction done. Sexual reproduction requires fusion of male and female gametes. So, we shall understand now how sexual reproduction takes place in flowering plant. So, reproductive part of the plant is flower. So, look at the figure. This is a TS of transverse section of the typical flower, and flower if we will talk about flower parts. So, they are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. So, reproductive organ of the flowering plant is androecium and gynoecium. So, stamens which produces pollen are the male part, and pollen grains contains male sex cells. There may be several stamens in each flower. Each stamen has two parts. Upper part is known as anther, which bears pollen, and it is held on the lower part called filament. Pistil or gynoecium is the female reproductive part, and its basal part of the ovary carrying eggs or ovules of female sexes. The part of the pistils are stigma, style and ovary. In most plants, each flower bears both male and female parts. They are termed bisexual. In some plants, they are only male flowers with the only gynoecium, and female flowers bearing only, in some plants there are male flowers with only androecium and female flowers bearing only gynoecium. So, they are called unisexual. So, now we talk about pollination. How done? There are some pollinating agent, pollination by bird, by water, or by honeybee, or by wind. There are several methods of pollination. So, we will talk about pollination as well as fertilization. So, pollination means transfer of pollen grains from another anther to the stigma of a flower is known as or called pollination. And for fusion of two nuclei, pollen and ovules are brought together by several agencies like wind, water and insects. So, self-pollination means transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower on the same plant, or when pollen is of a flower falls on its own stigma and fertilizes the ovule. Example: pea plant, botanical name is Rhizum sativum, rice Oryza sativa, and wheat Triticum aestivum. In short, we can say it ensures reproduction even when pollinators are absent, but reduces genetic variations. So, next is cross pollination, transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of a different plant of the same species, or pollen from one flower falls on the stigma of another flower of a different plant of the same species and then fertilizes the ovule of that flower. Example: mango, Mangifera indica, apple, Malus domestica, and sunflower Helianthus annuus. It promotes genetic diversity, often aided by wind, insect, blood or water. So, agents like wind, water or insects help to transfer pollen from one flower to another flower. For fertilization or fusion of nuclei of the pollen and ovule, pollen is brought by any pollinating agent mentioned above, either bird, insect, water or wind, on the stigma of the pistil. Each pollen grain forms a pollen tube, and pollen grains nucleus reaches the ovule as pollen tube pushes through the pistil, as you see in the figure. So, fertilized ovule develop into seeds which are capable of germinating into seedling and new plants. And germination may be three types: apigeal, hypigeal and other. So, first apigeal. Apigeal germination in cotyledons are pushed above the soil surface by the elongation of the hypocotyle. Example is mostly dicotyledon seeds, bean, castor, sunflower and other Cotyledons becomes green and photosynthesis, helping in early growth. Hypogeal cotyledons germination. The cotyledons remains below the soil surface. Only the epicotyle elongates and pushes the plumule upward. Examples: pea, gram, maize, and coconut. Cotyledons stay underground and act as a food reserve. Next is vivipary germination. Seeds germinate while still attached to the parent plant. Example is mangrove plants like Rhizopora and Avicennia. Adaptation to saline, waterlogged conditions where seeds are viable in soil is so difficult. So, as we discussed earlier that lower organ animals like sponges and hydra can reproduce through asexual reproduction. So, they can however also reproduce sexually. So, in all animals, once seeds are formed, they get dispersed and are carried away from the parents and then germinate under favorable conditions. So, we will talk about now sexual reproduction in animals. So, we know there are male and female gametes. Female produces egg and male produces sperms, and egg and sperms fuses to form the zygote, which then develop into embryo and the embryo into a full-fledged individual. The development may occur partially or completely inside the egg. So, such animals, those lay egg, include fish, frog, reptiles and birds. They are called oviparous or egg-laying animals. In mammals, like all animals, dog, cat, cow, humans, baby develop inside the mother's womb. So, they are termed as viviparous. So, in tapeworm, worm and earthworm, both male and female sex organs are in the same individual. So, such type of organisms are called hermaphrodite. They have both sexes in one animal. If sexes are when we talk about the all and other animals, their sexes are separate. Male individual has male organs like testes, while the female has ovaries. We know humans are also belong to an animal kingdom and they are mammal and hence viviparous. So, now we talk about reproduction in humans. First we will talk about, see the picture and the period. This shows period from infancy to reproduce maturity in humans, including childhood and adulthood, and lastly age 12. So, picture shows the progression of human life through stages of infancy, childhood, adolescence, then adulthood, then finally aging. So, these when we say about the picture, to this depicted, the humans has several stages, which includes infancy, childhood, adulthood, adolescence, and old age.
प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। हम
अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो,
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
मित्रों हम उठे और जागे,
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय का है द्वार खुला सबकी खातिर।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर।
शिक्षा और परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर। दुनिया में इसके केंद्र बात,
कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने।
Before taking a break, we are talking about reproduction in plants. We have talked about asexual reproduction in plants and sexual reproduction in plants, and vegetative propagation of plants. We have talked about sexual reproduction in animals. They may be oviparous or viviparous. Now we will talk about, or we will discuss about reproduction in humans. First we talk about adolescence. Look at the figure. The period from infancy to reproductive maturity in humans includes childhood and adolescence. So, the picture shows the progression of human life through stages of infancy, then childhood, then adolescence, adulthood, and finally aging. So, these stages we can say infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. So, body undergoes natural changes. First, we have already told you, we are talking first, we will talk about adolescence age. So, the body undergoes natural changes as one grows into the reproductive age of their life. These changes begin around the age of 10 to 12, 11, and last till 18 to 19 or sometimes 20 years of age. So, this stage teen, 11 and 12 to 18 or 19, this stage of life is known as adolescence or Kishoravastha. So, this time period when changes occurs in human body make them capable for reproduction is known as puberty. So, not only humans but no organisms became mature and capable of reproduction soon after their birth and needs to reach maturity and adulthood in order to do so. So, started from infancy to adulthood. So, this period between birth and maturity is very short in animals, perhaps it is the longest period in humans. It is important to remember that although these changes occurs in all adolescents, the timing and pace of changes may differ from individual to individual. This just goes to prove that each of us is unique, and these changes may be physical, physiological, and psychological. So, when we talk about the physical changes, so it may be increase in height, changes in body shape, changes in voice, development of sex organs, and appearance of secondary sexual characters. So, when we talk about increase in height, then bones may elongate, muscles develop leading to height increase. In case of changes in body shape, chest and shoulders broaden in boys and increase in fat deposition below the waist in girls. Or changes in voice also, the voice box or larynx enlarges and is visible as the Adam's apple in boys. Develop deep voice, their voice sometimes cracks as the larynx is enlarged and voice control is lost at the time, and girls develop a high pitched voice. Development of sex organs. Sex organs maturing during adolescence and girls and boys becomes capable of reproduction. It is important to observe proper hygiene and wash all parts of the body including external genital organs and appearance of secondary sexual character. Axial hair and pubic hair appears. Facial hair begins to grow in boys and breasts develop in girls. So, we will talk about more in physical changes like increase in height. We know bones elongate, muscle develop, and height increases. So, what will I remark? It is one of the most perceptible changes during adolescence. Increase in height is dependent on the genetic makeup, nutritional status, and physical activity level of in adolescence. Second, changes in body shape. We know chest and shoulders broaden in boys, increased fat deposition below the waist, around hips in girls. And what is the remark? Adequate nutrition is necessary for proper growth, and adolescence needs a balanced combination of food items that provides energy, carbs or fats that help in growth, proteins, and protect them from infections by enhancing immunity, known as vitamins and minerals. So, we do advise to take balanced diet. So depending on whether you are a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, choose appropriately from the 5 food groups, that is cereals and millets, vegetables and fruits, milk, milk product, meat, fish and egg, pulses and fats and sugar. There are some assumptions also. Fast food, chips, soda, chocolates, pastries, burger should not replace a meal and should not be consumed on a regular basis. You have to do regular physical exercises that helps in proper growth. Next, changes in the voice. In boys, voice box or larynx enlarges and as is visible as a Adam's apple. So remark, boys develop a deep voice. Their voice sometimes cracks when the larynx or voice box is enlarging or voice control is lost during the time. Girls develop a high pitched voice. During this age, adolescence age, development of sex organs mature during adolescence. Both we will discuss detail in next section. Remark will be, girls and boys both are capable for reproduction, and it is important to observe proper hygiene and wash all parts of the body, including external and genital organs in girls and testicles in boys. It is normal for adolescents to feel sexual excitement and masturbate. When a boy becomes sexually excited in a dream, he may experience an excretion and ejaculate in his sleep. This is known as wet dream and is normal. Appearance of secondary characters also shows in during adolescence age or during puberty. Axial hair and pubic hair appears. Breast developed in girls. Facial hair begins to grow in boys. Breast development in one of the first signs of puberty in girls, and variation in the size and shape of breast is normal and depend on the amount of fat stored in them. So size of breast is not correlated with production of milk or giving pleasure. Physiological changes includes increased activity of sweat and sebaceous glands, increase in appetite, body requires more nutrition as it grows, increase in the level of hormones in blood and menstruation. So first we will talk about increased activity of sweat and sebaceous gland. Overactivity of oil glands may cause acne and pimples on the face. Acne usually go away once the hormonal changes stabilize. However, these can be reduced by washing face with soap and water several times in a day, eating lots of fruits and veggies, drinking several glasses of water every day, and avoiding fried and fat-rich food items. Avoiding picking pimples as they could get infected and leave scars. Consult with health worker or doctor if the acne are particularly troublesome. Regular cleaning and washing will help prevent odor due to the increased sweating. So increase in appetite, body requires more nutrients, so as it grows. Remark, in adolescence body grows rapidly and it makes adolescents more hungry. Increase in the level of hormone in blood, levels of growth hormone and sex hormones in blood increases, so that will cause, that is growth hormones that is secreted by anterior pituitary glands control growth. Menstruation in human females, reproductive phase begins at puberty and lasts till the age of 45 to 50 years. A girl is born with fixed number of ova or eggs. However, these begins to mature at only puberty. One ovum matures at a time and it is released from the ovary once in 28 to 30 days. This happens under the influence of a hormone from anterior pituitary, FSH or follicle stimulus hormone. One ovum is shed alternately from each ovary every month. Under the influence of hormone from anterior pituitary, sex organs begin to secrete sex hormones, and testes secrete testosterone in males and ovaries secrete estrogen and progesterone in females. Egg travel down the fallopian tube to reach the uterus. At the same time, the wall of the uterus, under the influence of another hormone from anterior pituitary called LH or luteinizing hormone, thickens to receive fertilized egg, and there is no fertilization. The thickened lining of uterus and blood vessels are shed off and cause bleeding. This is called menstruation. We will see in figure, and also is known as a period. The first menstrual bleeding is called menarche. Stoppage of menstruation at age usually between 45 to 55 is termed as menopause. This is the menstrual cycle. This figure illustrates the physiological changes in the ovary and endometrium during two scenarios: the non-pregnant menstrual cycle and the beginning of pregnancy. So, non-pregnant menstrual cycle starts from ovary, day 1 to 14, follicle phase. Follicles develop in the ovary. Day 14, ovulation, mature egg is released. 15 to 28, luteal phase. The corpus luteum forms the secretes hormones, and endometrium, days 1 to 5, menstruation. The endometrium lining shades. 6 to 14, proliferate phase, lining thicken under estrogen influence. 15 to 18, secretory phase, progesterone prepares the lining for possible implantation, and end of the cycle. If no fertilization occurs, hormones level drop and the lining shades again. So, this is the non-pregnant stage from 14 to 28. Then next is beginning of the pregnancy. So, ovary, day 14, where ovulation occurs as in the menstrual cycle. Post ovulation, fertilization happens in the fallopian tube, endometrium. Post fertilization, embryo travels to the uterus. Implantation occurs several days after fertilization, and after implantation the endometrium continues to thicken and is maintained by hormone, especially HCG from the embryo, supporting early pregnancy. So, remark will be many females have a period of every 28 days, some have even 21 days, and another cycle could be of 35 days. So, period usually lasts over 4 days, but could be shorter or longer. Many adolescent girls have irregular and painful periods that settles down as girls grow up. If the problem persists, a medical doctor should be consulted. So, remark is menstruation is not an illness. If the girl feels comfortable, she could do anything that she does normally. Some girls may get cramps and pain in the abdomen. Exercise may help to prevent the pain. Paracetamol, any painkiller as suggested by the doctor, may help. The pain is difficult to bear. So, girls use sanitary towels, cotton wool, clean clothes or tampons to absorb blood during their periods, but it is important to change these frequently to prevent infection from reaching vagina. If reused cloth should be washed with a mild detergent and dried in the sun. So, adolescents may be biologically capable of reproduction, but they are not ready to shoulder the responsibilities of parenthood. So, adolescent girls are not physiologically mature for childbearing, and many a time both the adolescent's mother and her baby suffers from complications. So, adolescent parents are not likely to have good opportunity of education and livelihood and may not be able to provide their child. Even though the legal age of marriage is 18 for girls and 21 for boys, child marriage is still a problem in our country. So, it is important adolescents should enjoy their phase of their lives, but not invest in their future. It is important to strike a balance. Adolescents need to exhibit responsible sexual behavior during this phase. Their decisions regarding relationship, sex and sexuality should be based on appropriate information and understand of consequences and a sense of responsibilities. Observe menstrual hygiene also. So, do you know, if a female notices any change in her breast, a lump change in breast shape, discharge from nipples, pits or hollow in the skin around the breast, she should consult a health worker or doctor immediately. So, can you give any two reasons why menstruation does not occur during pregnancy? Reason is, when egg fertilization does not happen, the egg as well as thickened lining of the uterus and blood vessels are shed off. Second, during pregnancy, the growing fetus is attached to thickened uterine wall. There are several psychological changes. Mental, emotional and intellectual maturity develop gradually. Adolescents are capable of abstract thinking. They experience mood swings. They become self-conscious. Self-image and identity both becomes important. Friendship is very important to them. They start getting interested in one another in a sexual way. Opinions expressed as by peer that are different from their personal belief could be a source of stress and anxiety, as it is important for them to fit it in with the group norm. So, adolescents should definitely enjoy their phase of their living in lives, but not invest in their future. It is important to strike the right balance. Initiating and nurturing friendship and positive relationship is a vital part of a growing up. So, we are closing this session right now. We will come again to meet you in new program of science and technology, or we will continue this in our next session. Till then, goodbye and thank you.